Okay, let's talk about exponents of negative numbers. So what are exponents typically? Well, exponents are things like 2 to the power of 2. This is the exponent, the thing you're raising the number to. That is the exponent. Another example would be to the power of 4, or maybe to the power of 1 gazillion, billion, trillion, gillion, killion, million, billion. A number that's big enough for your mama. Okay? Okay, but let's apply this to a negative number. Let's first say, what is um, negative 2 to the power of 2, let's say. Well, we know that 2 to the power of 2 is just the same thing as saying 2 times 2, right? And that is equal to 4. Because you're just multiplying both numbers against themselves twice. That's what this means. If it was 2 to the power of 3, if it was 2 to the power of 3, you would be saying 2 times 2 times 2. 1, 2, 3, right? That's what an exponent is. And that'd be 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, but what about negative 2? What is that equal to? Well, if we're multiplying against each other, then we go 2 times, well, negative 2 times negative 2. Well, what is negative 2 times negative 2? Well, we know that's just 4. A negative number times a negative number is a positive number, and 2 times 2 is 4. So, 4. So, negative 2 to the power of 2 is 4. Okay, what about negative 2 to the power of 3? We know that 2 to the power of 3 is just 8. But what about negative 2 to the power of 3? Negative 2 to the power of 3. Well, let's do this. Let's figure out. We go negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. So negative 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, times negative 2. Well, what is negative 2 times 4? Well, 2 times 4 is 8. And a negative number times a positive number equals a negative number. So this would be negative 8. So the first one, they were exactly the same. Negative 2 to the power of 2 was 4, and 2 to the power of 2 was 4. But in this case, 2 to the power of 3 was 8, and negative 2 to the power of 3 was negative 8. If we do this again, we were to go, let's say, one more up, negative 2 to the power of 4. Let's first figure this out just regular, with a regular 2 to the power of 4. 2 to the power of 4 is equal to 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2, 4 times. 2 times 4 is, 2 times 2 is 4 times 2, which is 8. So 8. So then this becomes 8 times 2, which is 16. So 2 to the power of 4 is 16. What about negative 2 to the power of 4? Well, if 2 to the power of 4 is 16, what do you think it will be? So this would be negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. So negative 2 times negative 2, we already know is 4. Positive times a positive is a positive. A negative times a negative is a positive. So then this becomes 4. And then we have 4 times negative 2. Well, a positive times a negative is a negative. 4 times 2 is 8. So then this becomes, this right here becomes 8. Negative 8. Because a positive times a negative is a negative. And then times negative 2 would be 8 times 2 is 16, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So this becomes 16. So we get the same number, 16. And if you notice, this will keep happening with every even number. Even numbers, negative numbers, whenever they're raised to the power of an even number, which is a number that is divisible by 2, it will be a positive value. You will get a positive value. And a negative number raised to the power of an odd number, So negative number raised to the power of an odd number, which is a number that's not divisible by 2. Let's say like 3 or 5 or 7 or 9, you will get a negative number. And the reason being is because with these even numbers, you will always have pairs. You will be able to split them up into 2 negative pairs. You'll be able to split them up into negative pairs, where a negative times a negative is equal to a positive. So you'll always be able to split them up into pairs. But with numbers like 5, well, you will always be able to split them up into pairs of 2. Sorry, pairs of 2, because a number, negative number, 2 negative numbers multiplied by each other are positive. But if it's like 3, then there'll always be negative. Okay. But numbers like 5, if you have 5 negative numbers together, 5 negative numbers, 5 negative numbers, I can make this a pair. I can make this one a pair of 2, but this one's going to be all by itself. So this will be a positive number, and this will be a positive number. But whenever they multiply it against a negative number, they're going to both turn negative. And same thing with 9. If I got 9 negative ones, right? I know this is tedious, but I want to explain it. That's 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I have 9 negative ones, I can make a pair right here. I can make a pair of 2 right here. I can make a pair of 2 right here. I can make a pair of 2 right here. But then there's 1 left over. So all of these will be positive, but then they're going to be multiplied against this one. At least one of them, this one's going to be multiplied against this one. And then this number is going to be negative. And then we're going to have to multiply this one against this one. And this number is going to be negative, and then this one, and then this one, and so on and so forth. So negative numbers raised to the power of even numbers will be positive. But negative numbers raised to the power of an odd number, which are numbers that are not divisible by 2, will be negative. Stay in school.